Now, the 2018 provincial election saw a record number of Quebec women elected. So that's great. Glad to hear that. But what went wrong? The CAQ has 9 women not running again compared to 3 men. The Liberals are losing 8 women compared to 5 men. Obviously, I think it goes without saying that each candidate has their own personal reasons for deciding to leave. But I think it raises some questions, doesn't it? Why have so many more women than men decided that this is not the job for them? Why are so many women leaving politics? So I thought the perfect person to speak to would be Justine McIntyre. You hear her often on The Big Five with Elias Mackos or David Hertel this morning. She's a former Montreal City Councilor and she's a consultant at Espace Stratégie. And Justine, I think out of the gate, I need to know, why are you not in politics now?
Hi, Natasha. First of all, thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for having me on. The reason I'm not in politics now is and probably for all of these women who are leaving, by the way, there are personal aspects and there are professional aspects to it. My situation became very difficult because I was unelected. So I was elected in 2013, lost the election in 2017 when I ran for borough mayor in Pierrefonds. And then the decision was, what do I do next? Do I stay in politics? Do I make another run for it? And while I was going through that thinking process, we hit a pandemic. So that complicated things tremendously in terms of just the way the whole career of being in politics, what it looked like and what campaigning during a pandemic looked like. So we were going through that dark period. I was going through a lot of questions about whether I wanted to keep fighting or not, because it is a fight. And also what were my priorities at this stage of life with regards to my career and my family, et cetera. So ultimately, for a combination of reasons, I decided not to run. And probably I should also mention that at that last municipal election here in Montreal, it was very much a showdown between Denis Coderre and Valérie Plante. And my question was, do I really want to try to come in between that? Because I felt like they sort of had an appointment with fate. There was something that needed to happen between the two of them, and that happened. And coming in at that time just didn't seem like good timing to me. So it was sort of all of that going on.
If you had to be convinced to go into politics in the first place, did someone persuade
Sure.
you, or did you feel driven to do so?
Oh, no, I absolutely had to be convinced. And by the way, this is the case for most women, because after that, when I was doing my own recruiting and trying to attract candidates municipally to run as councillors in Montreal, it was extremely difficult. And what I found is that most men that I approached had at least thought of it at some point in their lives. They sort of had an idea of what politics was like. They maybe had an interest. And so when I approached them, they were more likely to give me a quick response, like, sure, I can jump in. That's something I can do. They were able to project themselves into that role. And I found that with women, there was a lot more courtship that needed to happen. I needed to convince them that it wasn't going to be as horrible as they might think it could be, that they were going to receive some support along the way, that I was going to help them, that and also to give them an image, a mental image of what they themselves could achieve in politics, because many of them had never actually considered themselves in that position. So it was a much longer process with women than it was with men.
You know, can you hear me now, Justine?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
I'm thinking as well. So if you look at the situation provincially now, it's one thing to say you ran for a party or you're with a party that is no longer in power, and the polls suggest is probably not going to do all that well. And I'm speaking of the Liberals this time around. Yeah. It's quite another when you're, part of the CAQ, for example.
Yes.
You're looking like the polls show you're going to win an overwhelming majority right now, or at least you're going to win the election. And then you decide to leave anyway. That doesn't happen often in politics. Why are women, do you think, doing that in a party that is likely to be reelected?
Well, again, probably each one of those individuals has their specific reasons for leaving. But even when you're in power, it's an extremely, extremely grueling job. And again, I'm coming at it from a municipal perspective, but that becomes amplified when you're at the provincial level, because there's just that much more spotlight and focus on the work that you're doing in terms of media, in terms of accountability to the population, and so on. So it's an extremely grueling job, and I think that aspect might be underestimated. So There is also, I talked about the perception, men and women being able to project themselves into the position, but there's also this other thing, which is this perception that some people have of politics as being some kind of a reward, or just the fact of being a candidate or being elected, like you've already won something, and that's it, and that's where it ends. And in fact, that's where it begins, and it gets really, really hard from that point on. So the ramp up to being elected is difficult. It's something. It is an accomplishment to be elected. But once you're there, then you have to deal with all kinds of issues, all kinds of pressure as well from lobby groups, and there's always going to be a portion of the population that's dissatisfied, and addressing that and being comfortable with not having people like you, and that takes a toll.
Justine, we've also definitely heard a lot about women being more targeted, harassed on social media, trolled. You were referring to political life as a fight, and I get that it's a fight to get elected, and then, like you said, that fight gets even harder once you get the job. Is that fight all the more difficult for women, especially given the social media aspect of it?
That's a good question. I personally didn't encounter that, but I think we've seen some of that recently with the Prime Minister of Finland, who was, caught on tape doing something as ludicrous as dancing. And actually, my question with regards to that is, why was she being filmed? Like, I have no problem with her dancing, but it was really a mistake to film her. So whoever that friend was, probably she should have a talk with him or her. Because you do want to protect your private life, and that's not always easy in politics, and women are probably, yes, more subjected to criticism for private life behavior than men are. There probably is still a double standard.
So what needs to change then? What needs to change to get more women into politics and have them stay in politics, Justine?
First, I do want to say that it is just a tough field. So there are things that we can change, but part of it is just having a realistic idea of what it is that we're becoming engaged in. Because some of the people that we see dropping out quickly, perhaps, and I don't want to name people or say, mention specific cases, but sometimes it's because there wasn't a clear picture of what it was going in. So I think it's a mistake to pump people up and say this is going to be great, it's going to be easy. It's not. You need to know that you're in for a fight. You're going to be making some really tough decisions. We're not in an easy period of time right now. We're probably heading towards, or potentially heading towards, a recession. There's going to be a lot of things that the next government is going to have to deal with. So the first thing is to have a very realistic approach. And the second thing is to make sure that you're at a stage in your life where you can achieve that balance, that you have the time available to give to politics, because it is going to become your mistress. It's going to become your angry, jealous mistress who's going to want to take all of your time. So if you're at a stage in life where it's not possible to give that, you might want to think about waiting. And of course, on the side of how politics works, I think there's been some adjustments made already to account for being able to accommodate people with parents with young children and so on. So there is some adjustment happening on the side of politics, but I do think there has to be some reality on the side of candidates as well, to know what it is you're getting into and to really want that, and to be passionate about it and care enough to do it anyway.
So there's your take from someone who's been in it, gets it, and is kind of letting you know what's in store. And I'm guessing a lot of the women we're talking about who have decided not to run again are probably going through exactly the same thing.
Again, everybody has their own reasons, but there is a kind of common theme, a common thread here. Justine, thank you so much for your time, for your perspective today.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Justine. Justine McIntyre, yeah, she ran municipally, but...
she was a Montreal City Councilor.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask her, didn't get around to say when she ran a second time, she said she ran for the mayor of Pierrefonds and lost.
Yes.
So if she had won, would things have been different? Would she have decided to keep going and then perhaps move from that?
And it certainly
to
sounds to me
politics?
like her political career is far from over.